Greetings, this is Renaldo Malpractice from Renaldo and the Loaf.
Hello, this is Ted the Loaf from Renaldo and the Loaf.
Well, you know, we met at school when we were about 16 or going on 17. And basically struck up a friendship then because we had a mutual interest in the Tyrannosaurus Rex band.
We were just experimenting, really. We started off in the early days in a very kind of conventional way. As Brian's just said, we were interested in Tyrannosaurus Rex, and I guess we started out trying to emulate the kind of things they were doing. And gradually over the years, it just seemed to get stranger and stranger. All of a sudden, one afternoon, we rather surprised ourselves in what we were doing, kind of condensed into an almost song-like structure. And at about that time, we discovered overdubbing, and we got a 4-track tape recorder and started working in a more song-based way.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that we never learnt to play anything properly. We both had aspirations to playing guitar and that, and I suppose each had our own sort of. We said we liked Tyrannosaurus Rex, and we each had bands that we were into, but we never became proficient at playing guitar in what you call acceptable conventional ways, and so we started making up our own music. Because it just we could do it.
We didn't really have any musical theory whatsoever, and I don't know about Brian, but I still don't.
No, neither do I. I mean, there's nothing I particularly follow, and just like all those years ago, I feel very much the same. It's whatever excites you at the time, just do it.
His eyes are glazed, his cheeks are thin. He's not been taking food.
The names came out of an activity we used to partake in called, we used to have what we called dice evenings, which came about through reading a book called The Dice Man by Luke Reinhardt. So there are all these different options, and then you roll the dice, and whichever number comes up, that's the option you have to do. And we, with a group of friends, used to have evenings where we went out, usually on a Friday evening, with a number of options, and we'd roll the dice, and then whatever came up, we'd go and do. And as an adjunct to that, we all had particular names that we used on these dice evenings. And Brian's name was Hooper Struve, which is, I believe, is a type of lemonade. And I was Joseph Sneff. I can't quite remember what the origin of that was, but when it came to doing the first cassette, it just seemed like a fun idea to call it Renaldo and the Loaf play Struve and Sneff. It's like we were, as Renaldo and the Loaf, playing the songs of our alter egos, if you like, Struve and Sneff.
I mean, Renaldo and the Loaf, the name for that, those names, which are dice names as well, most people, generally, people would be given their dice name by somebody else, not think of it themselves, within the group. And Dave was called Ted the Loaf because at the time Dave had a big bushy beard, and this guy thought he looked like a bit like a teddy bear. And so hence the Ted bit, and then the loaf. There's the Cockney rhyming slang expression like to use your loaf of bread head, means you're brainy, yeah. And Dave had just got his degree at university, and so he was called Ted the Loaf. That's how he got his. Nobody quite knows why I was called Renaldo. This guy just said it, and it stuck. So the first, the reason we did it with our first proper release thing was a cassette album, as Dave said earlier about Renaldo and the Loaf play Struve and Sneff. We hadn't thought about doing that. We had a collection of songs, sort of recorded, and a local record shop was selling at the time a cassette done by a local band. So we listened to this cassette that this band had done and thought, well, we think our songs are better than this, and so we just made a few of these cassettes, and the shop sold them. I went on a fly drive holiday to the west coast of America in 1979, when we just finished with the cassette had just been done, and both Dave and I were sort of like into the residents as well, and the part of the trip was to go to San Francisco, and I made a point of dropping into 444 Grove Street in San Francisco, which is the Ralph and Residence 8 headquarters, to drop a copy of the tape, but also to buy some albums. And a guy there listened to a few tracks off of the cassette and thought it was pretty good. And it sort of went from there. And subsequently, we found out that guy that listened to that was one of the residents, and so it was the residents' own recommendation to Ralph that they signed us. That basically over a period of time we carried on recording in our usual way, and tracks were put together for Songs for Swinging Larvae.
I guess the reviews of Larvae were quite mixed, really. I mean, there were some quite good reviews, and there were some quite bad reviews as well. People saying things like, you need travel sickness pill, and it's the sort of thing that is guaranteed to clear the room at parties, stuff like that. And I don't know that had a negative impact on the way we approached yodeling. I think we were more conscious that what we were now recording was for a release. We weren't just doing it for fun. We were doing it for fun, but not simply just for fun. I think we were more considered in what we did, and also we worked in a slightly different way. Whereas virtually everything on Larvae we recorded together, there are a number of tracks on yodeling which are just Brian, and there are a number of tracks which are just me. There are also a number that were done in much the same way as Larvae was, where we worked together in the usual way. I think it was more structured and possibly less experimental than Larvae.
The gap between yodeling and Albums Taboo was, well, basically I think it was a consequence of not only of our production of the music sort of slowed down as well. And again, we had an 8-track and other equipment that we were trying to sort of get ideas with, and we did produce a number of experimental ideas and sort of just instrumental things and that, which but we wanted to get more into production, I would think, and using the 8-track, we were able to do that, make more complex music in many ways, and but the album itself was actually finished, something like early 1986, something like that. And the rest of the time was actually taken up in messing around with abortive cover designs. It took forever, and I think that actually, we couldn't put closure on the album at all because it was still hanging around, and I think that stopped us sort of carrying on with new work. It just sort of stopped us in our tracks in some ways, Yeah,
I think it's also true to say that in that period we also put together what became the vinyl album version of Struve and Sneff, and we also released Ollie Ollie Rock Cod. I don't know, it just felt to me like we just reached a point where at that time there wasn't kind of a way forward with the music. I'm not suggesting that a 20-year break is necessarily a healthy thing or a necessary thing, but it's certainly, I think, it certainly reinvigorated me for music.
Oh, most certainly. I mean, it's we both sort of went off and explored different roads, and the roads then, a couple of years ago met again, and we all sort of been listening to different things and different musics, and then, it just it was just sort of was great to get back together. I mean, it's I didn't know if it would ever happen, but I'm totally pleased it has, and certainly has invigorated my interests as well. I mean, in doing the pieces for the new film, it was in working on that. It was almost like the years fell away. It felt to me the spirit was just the same, although we're 20 years older.
Going back to when we met again, really, after all that length of time, and it was strange because it was very much like we were meeting in the pub that we always used to go for a drink in after we'd finished a recording session, and it was more like a week had passed rather than 20 years. That's the way it felt.
So in 2004, I get this email out the blue from this guy in America who is interested. He's a Renaldo Loaf fan who wants to perhaps collaborate on producing some music for a film. And well, I certainly had never done any music that would be used in a film before, and so I was well tickled by the idea. So Alex said, "Would you like to do the end credit music for my project, the Human Elbow?" It was actually, very difficult in that in producing music for a film which you really did not have that much idea what it was like. Well, hardly any idea apart from script synopsis to really know what to do. So Alex sent over a backbone piece of music which had the relevant changes, and I was able to then work with that, add to it, do a bit of production work on it, to produce this piece of music called Ode to Billy.
When we met, I still had absolutely no idea that I was going to be going back to doing music again. It was just, it'd be nice to meet up after all this time, catch up and exchange gossip, news and all the rest of it. And Brian gave me CD copies of the Renaldo and the Loaf albums and a couple of CDs he put together of unfinished stuff. And I just started playing around with a few of the unfinished things and cross-fading them and mixing them and doing a few very simple treatments. And I found that I was enjoying it, and more to the point, Brian was enjoying what I was doing. He thought what I was coming up with was quite interesting. It kind of evolved from that into getting a little bit more sophisticated software to work with, and eventually getting Fruity Loops to work with. And I suppose I've been playing around with Fruity Loops for a while when we got the emails asking us to do the music for the film, and very much like Brian's just said about the other film soundtrack that he did, I felt very much the same. I'd never made music for a film before, and it sounded like a cool idea to have a go at it. So without giving it too much thought, I agreed to it. We both agreed to it. I mean, really, the details we had to work on were quite sketchy. It was a film about the American dream, and Alex thought it would be highly amusing to have the perspective of two British guys on that. I suppose the piece that came first was what became known as Crank Mannican, which actually is an anagram of Kirk Mannican. I suppose I started with the idea, well, what's American music for me, and the things that immediately sprang to mind for me were the music of Aaron Copland, that sound with the very kind of spacious quality to it. Charles Ives, because of the way he overlays so many different things happening at the same time. That's something I've always found exciting. And the other thing I was thinking of was the music of Leonard Bernstein, America in particular, from West Side Story. And I guess those were the things that went into the melting pot, and I guess Brian would be the best one to talk about the lyrics to Aria Mia. What I will say is that I was playing around with a few ideas for the piece, and a friend was here who spent a lot of time in the States, and she came up with the suggestion about using America the Beautiful, and she thought it would work really well as a rap tune. Well, at that point, I didn't quite know how that could possibly sound, but we managed to get hold of the words, and
the idea that came to us to use the same technique or similar technique to that which we used on Hambu Hodo on the Albo's Taboo album, and that was to basically fracture the words. It's almost like within words there's another language. If you take certain bits of words away, another language is made. There are words lurking in words, although the words that are lurking there don't make sense in English. And there's a similar that is similar to Hambu Hodo, where it's hamburgers and hot dogs, where certain letters are dropped out of it. I actually saw at that time a van where the letters had fallen off, and that's where the idea came from. And so taking I think it's the first four verses of America the Beautiful, the letters were allowed to freely fall out of the words to create another language. Aria Miaka is America just broken into two bits and put side by side. It has a sort of, when you sing it, when I sang it always had a sort of, almost an oriental quality to it. It just sort of happened to come out that way. It just happened, and it was inspired by the backing music, and it just turned into what it was, and certainly I was very pleased with the result at the end of the day.